Good afternoon. How are you? Well, it's about 68 degrees, so that's a change. Makes us more comfortable. Thomas Jefferson would agree. And the wind is, I don't know, 1.5 miles an hour, something like that. And there's nobody on the road right now. That may change, but it's very pleasant. I've been looking for people who capture our moment in history, what's going on now. And I wander around, Latin and Greek writers that I was originally compelled to read in high school. And I find that revisiting them, having had some years under my belt, gives me more of an insight into what they were talking about. Apparently there are dissenters in the neighborhood. One quote I came across was that right and wrong are turned into one another. War is everywhere in the world. Crimes everywhere. In many ways that fits our time. But the fellow who wrote it was Virgil in 30 BC. The more things change, the more they remain the same. The notion that Virgil had, beside Aeneas, was that we have fragile beginnings. So, does the bird ever get out of the nest? And we have the quote of Ben Franklin that you have a republic if you can keep it. But at the end of a culture or civilization, are we fragile again? And do we risk expiration? And these are questions that we have to ask now, because we don't seem able, to borrow from another poem, to hold the center. And if we can't hold the center, we will fail. Now we see things that defy logic, discipline, goodwill. And the latest one that strikes me is that down in Georgia, in the prosecution of Trump and his gangland friends, one of the defendants, Harrison Floyd, intends to make his defense that, the election was stolen. And he's going to subpoena the records and so forth from the local voting precincts to prove this. Now, I'm hoping that the relatively young and inexperienced judge is going to shut that down. Or, have a hearing to say, what is your proof? And if you have none, sorry fella, we're not going to get bogged down in your pyrotechnics going nowhere to prove or disprove that something happened, when we know that the thing you want to prove has been demonstrated not to have happened, meaning that there was fraud in the election. But you see, that fits the times. We have so few people tethered to facts and reason and public responsibility, individual responsibility, if they've taken an oath of office, faithfulness to that oath. So we're in very difficult times. Now, some may think it's unfair, but I am so glad that Fetterman won the Senate race. But Senate Fetterman dresses like a pig going to the Senate, and that's not acceptable. I'm sorry. I think he should be called up on discipline, because, my notion of how I dress for clients or court particularly is that I'm honoring my client by showing up and appearing, and therefore I hope also having an accent of being professional and serving that person. And when I was on the Hill, I dressed similarly to the way I do now, suit and tie. And there was a short period of time where this graduate program I was in, the other students were encouraging me not to wear a tie. And so I bowed as an accommodation to the culture of this subgroup in this graduate program. And then I thought when I came back to the Hill, I just wouldn't wear a tie. I still wore a suit and everything. And at the time, I was on the House side as special counsel to Zoe Lofgren and her chief of staff. And the first time I went down on the floor, the clerk directed me in the future to wear a tie. And I did. I respected the culture of the body. So Futterman, did I say Futterman? Fetterman. That's funny. Futzing around. Anyhow, Fetterman, he stands in the doorway to the chambers of the Senate and votes from there wearing shorts and an open neck long shirt. He looks like a bum. And he can't be unaware of his physical presence. So he should accommodate that in a manner that's respectful of his function. I just don't think it's acceptable to do the public's business dressed like you're going to a basketball match in your neighborhood at the school park. Others may disagree. I don't. I actually do think that how you prepare yourself to do certain things has an effect on the things you're doing. Writing, working, presenting, and so forth. So anyhow, Fetterman, get yourself a long suit and wear the damn thing to chambers and stop this nonsense. 35 years ago, there was a brilliant man, Jim Hansen, with NSA, who told us the Earth was endangered. It was endangered because we humans are warming the planet in such a way that it's going to contrive to complicate our lives up to and including great suffering and death. And here we are all this time later, and a summons is being heard again. And the summons is being heard because we continue to increase the temperature of the earth, of the water, and put ourselves at risk. So is this another example of what our boy Virgil would say was frail at the end of a culture? That we're not paying attention to where we live, our backyard, the air above us. And the answer is, we're not. Governments are not. Politicians give us sweet talk, but then don't follow through. Now, I don't know about you, but I do appreciate he wears a bow tie, but the childlike looking House Speaker Johnson, and I'm sorry about appearances, but not only does he look childlike, his decisions are childish or childlike. They are insulting. And the best and most recent example is that he is prepared to support $14.3 billion for Israel. Okay. And right now, as I'm talking to you, I don't know what the dollar amount is that the White House thinks is necessary. But at the same time, he wants to cut $14.3 billion from IRS. What kind of thinking is that? Has anybody told him that one of the ways that we obtain money is from income taxes and from having a staff that can rightly tell people they can pay less or pay more? So it's kind of a childish thing, don't you think? On the one hand, I'm saying I want to spend this money on Israel. On the other hand, I want to cut back the exact same amount to the funds that we spend on the IRS. So these are our times, and one could get down in the mouth about it, but the problem is we can't be ostriches. We have to talk and deal with these outrageous policies that could engulf us as a nation and indivisibly. And so we have to be very careful about that. And the way we're careful about it is we have an election next Tuesday. And these are mostly state offices, but we have to deal with them. And lastly, to suggest something that you might all enjoy. Now, keep in mind, as a kid, I so liked swimming. I started swimming when I was 5 years old. Not in a competitive sense, just being able to swim. My dad and my uncle contrived to fool me into thinking there was no danger in the water, and I loved it ever since. And so I have competed at swimming, and I've been beaten in the pool by the best swimmers in the world, including a 4-time Olympic gold medal winner. Maybe it's the only way I could brag about my experience swimming. But there is an amazing movie that tells a true story about a woman, Diana Nyad, who swam across the channel, swam around Manhattan Island, and I think in 60 to 65 hours swam from Cuba to Key West. And there is a movie about it. And if the story wasn't enough, the two people in the movie are no less than Jodie Foster as the trainer, friend, intimate, and Benning. Benning plays Diana. And this is a movie that I think you'll find riveting. It's a great story, amazing acting. The actors themselves, Jodie and Benning, both spent an enormous amount of time getting in shape for it. And Benning swims every stroke in the movie, if I understand correctly, and she didn't want anybody else to swim for her. And so she made a point of being so good at it herself. And as I understand, even after the movie, she continues to swim. So you can see it on Netflix, and I think you'd find it quite amazing. You know, unless you're afraid of the water, don't like swimming. But this is a story in which, if you could sum it up at one point, Benning says, "I will not have limitations imposed on me." Meaning, okay, at 28, I couldn't swim from Cuba to Key West. But now, at 60-something, I'm going to do it. So it's overcoming age. It's finding the strength in an older body and the endurance to do this. It's finding a way to deal with sharks and jellyfish and currents and all the things, and put together a team and a boat and the funds to do it. So I think you'd find it's not an escape in the sense that the message is very much about, if your life's not over, make something of it. That in a nutshell is what it's about. It might not be swimming for you. It might be a garden. It might be reading a book. It might be writing that poem that you've had inside of you that at least your family would enjoy. Maybe, who knows, others might too. So we're here, and if we squander the life we have by not making much of it, we have only ourselves to blame. So here I am on a comfortable day that's now becoming slightly overcast in my cathedral of trees, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.